Anyone who believes that the Apostle Paul's letters to the Galatians is discrediting any of the laws of Moses or the covenants obviously lacks not only the proper interpretation, but hasn't read any credible documented church history. To begin with, Acts chapter 21 clearly supports Paul being zealous for the Torah. For when he arrived in Jerusalem to visit with the elders, they immediately confronted him on the rumors they heard that he was teaching against circumcision and to forsake Moses and the customs of the law. At which Paul responded, "What must I do?" According to verse 24, the next day Paul not only paid for 4 men to fulfill their purification vows at the temple, but Paul joined them to prove his walk was orderly according to the Torah. I want you to know that some of the most powerful evidence we have to clearly establish what the apostles taught and what early believers practiced for hundreds of years isn't in the Bible, but comes from historical writings from that time. That is, even the Catholic Church has historical writings from their early bishops that prove all the early churches and parishes the apostles established throughout Asia Minor and different parts of the earth all kept the laws of Moses for hundreds of years. It's also an established fact that early bishops and future popes erroneously believed they had the authority on earth to change Torah. But according to historical Catholic sources, even the Apostle John and the entire assembly in Ephesus observed all the Mosaic laws up until the day John died. And then John's disciple Polycarp continued to lead all the churches of Asia to be Torah observant, just as they were originally instructed by the apostles. In fact, Polycarp in the late 2nd century was lured to Rome under false pretenses and was martyred there because of his apostolic stand and practices of Torah. Eusebius records that Polycrates also wrote that all the parishes of Asia Minor were still following the apostles' example of observing Sabbath and the feast days in the late 2nd century. Eusebius records that Victor, the bishop of Rome, in the late 2nd century, eventually wrote letters and declared all the brethren in all the churches that observed the Jewish Sabbath and feast days in Asia Minor to be excommunicated as heretics. It was because of the widespread Sabbath keeping in Asia Minor that was still going on in 364 AD that the council in Laodicea met to excommunicate those who rested on the Sabbath and called them Judaizers. But although that council tried to abolish the Sabbath, Sabbath keeping, as well as Passover on the 14th of Nisan, continued among the faithful and has never stopped. And millions were martyred by the Catholic Church because of their refusal to stop obeying Torah. Had Paul or any apostle written anything against the Torah, it would have been clearly evident from the historians, and there is no credible evidence to support anything of this sort from Catholic, Protestant, or Jewish sources. Anyone who thinks Paul or any of the 12 apostles taught that the laws of Moses or the covenants had been done away with is just not familiar with the mountain of historical documented evidence to the contrary. If Paul or any apostle had spoken against the laws of Moses in any way, they would have been stoned, just like Stephen, whom they falsely accused of speaking against the laws of Moses. Understanding that the Torah was their guide and foundation to living a righteous lifestyle will cause you to look for a deeper interpretation to what Paul was truly speaking about in his epistles. When all the evidence is laid on the table, both biblically and historically, it all boils down to whether or not you're going to believe the papacy has the right to change the laws of Moses and follow their teachings, or are you going to guard, protect, and practice what the apostles established as a firm foundation, the Torah, and thus fulfill the Great Commission spoken by Yeshua himself in Matthew 28, to go to all the nations and teach them to observe all that Yeshua has commanded them from the Torah. I'm Bill Sanford, trying to put the Torah in proper perspective in our day.